In the program today, we look at possibility of growing the country's resource envelope as the Treasury hints at Malawi's inability to deal away with the deficit budget for many years. And also in the program, we speak to experts in as far as the quality of infrastructure is concerned. What needs to be done if Malawi is to walk out of the continued challenges it is facing in as far as infrastructure development is concerned? That's Inside Business Time. Hello and welcome. This is Business Time and my name is William Kumwembe. In our main story in the program today, for quite some time, Malawi has been operating a deficit budget, largely due to the grayling mismatches between revenue available versus the need for expenditure. This has powered more pressure on the Treasury, which has been pushed to borrowing as a way of covering the gap. Now, according to Secretary of the Treasury, Mafuta, there is no chance that the country would ditch a deficit budget, at least in the foreseeable future. But what is at stake? This is a question our journalist Kumwembe posed to Mafuta.
We have been running in this country a deficit budget, but now that I'm there, I think I can tell you exactly why we have a deficit budget. You know, if you see at our budget as it is now, a 2.2 trillion budget, most of that is to do with what we call mandatory expenditures, wages, interest bill, and all of that, which we can't cut. But the country has to run. And basically, we have always said it's around 85% mandatory expenditures, which means the country is running at the last 15%, because the rest is probably being used to finance things that happened in the past. So we will still be with a budget that is deficit budget, unless we work seriously hard on the revenue side to see how we can, as Malawians on our own, generate enough revenue so that we can cover our own budget without borrowing. But for now, there is still a long way to go to achieve a surplus budget. That we have, I think, made progress, and as of yesterday, we had a review of the rapid credit facility which we had, and the IMF has gone forward with the positive news that we are progressing well, and possibly, as they indicated, maybe the Minister of Finance has also already announced that in end September, October, the board of IMF is going to probably look at Malawi with an ICF.
That is Mafuta, Secretary to the Treasury, who was speaking when the Treasury engaged the top journalists in as far as business and economic reporting is concerned. But now, how would positive reporting influence or propel growth of the economy? This is a question that was posed also to Mafuta.
My expectation is that media should be equipped with that relevant information for informed information dissemination, because you are part of the public finance management. You are part of that public finance management not only because you report, but because you can be able to project the positive side of the nation, of the economy, so that wherever prospective investors are, they can at least look at Malawi and say, look at Malawi as one of their places to target for investment or for doing business. That alone has an impact to help the country or to help the economy grow. So the expectation is really for the media to join hands with the government in terms of projecting the positive activities that are happening in the private sector as well as in government, for all to see, in order for the economy grow. Any business reporting that is probably not correct or indeed with limited information, always it makes investors jittery to come to an economy. For example, if you portray a picture like the country or this company has got the following dates, the following loans, probably for that company to go out there, for that country to go out there, there will obviously be people who are not willing to participate or to do business in that country because the risk profile is determined by the news that we always give in the media.
For quite some time, the country's construction sector has been ridiculed for what people say poor infrastructure. Among other things, corruption, poor workmanship, as well as strained resources have been cited among contributing factors to the poor work in the construction industry. But now, the National Council for Construction Industry has reiterated the commitment to leading initiatives towards restoring the lost glory, as Chief Executive Officer of NCIC says. His name is Gerard Konje. He was speaking when the institution, along with other stakeholders, hosted a construction symposium in Blantyre last week.
This group is basically a combination of a number of key stakeholders that are involved in policy as well as the implementation of infrastructure projects within the country. The purpose of this meeting is basically to jointly tease out solutions to the challenges facing delivery of infrastructure in the country. This particular one is under the theme of incorporating climate resilience in infrastructure planning, design, as well as implementation, learning lessons from the various natural disasters that have happened. We believe that if we conservatively address the challenges facing infrastructure development, we will be able to build back better, as well as be proactive in terms of how we plan, design, and implement infrastructure projects with the idea of making sure we have quality infrastructure products, as well as we contribute to economic development of the country. As a council, we are able to see that it's a mixed bag. We can isolate some infrastructure projects that have been done very well, but we also have a number of projects that have not been done well. There are challenges in terms of quality of infrastructure for various reasons. Let me be quick to highlight that quality is a product of many things. One, it's how you have budgeted for that particular infrastructure. Secondly, is how the infrastructure has been delivered. Now, as NCIC, we have developed the infrastructure delivery management standards. These are standards that will guide stakeholders in terms of how you can conceive an infrastructure project, how you plan for it, how you procure it, how you implement it, how you manage it, as well as how you maintain it. We believe that along that value chain, if anything goes wrong at any of those stages, it results into poor infrastructure. So some infrastructure that is termed poor is because it was poorly conceived. And some of it, it's because it was poorly designed. Perhaps at design level, you didn't get the right person to do it. You got somebody who is experiencing something different to do something that they are not competent in. And then it also borders on professionalism of those people that are involved in planning and implementation of projects.
Now, Minister of Transport and Public Works Principal Secretary for Administration, Madalo Nyambose, says there is need for industry players to be in the fore in ensuring that there is quality in as far as construction is concerned.
Our thematic message to the players in the industry is let's think resilience, let's think quality. Because the experience that we've had with the cyclones, Of course, we're talking about the Cyclone Freddy. That's where we are centering our experiences on. But we've had several other cyclones that have devastated the country. And people have lost their lives, they've lost property, we've lost infrastructure, even as a country. Roads, railways, so many other things have been affected. So what we're trying to say is, can we really think resilience? Can we think equality as we do our construction? You know, as I said, if the experiences of Cyclone Fred have not ignited any fire under us, then I don't know what else would. And I've interacted with the people, the various people that are attending this conference. They are committed to ensuring that implementation is done and the resilience is built into our planning and our designs. And we will follow up with the information dissemination, because there have been researches that have been done, some by students, some by institutions, but in most cases those were not being disseminated thoroughly. So that's one thing that we're going to do. And there are also strategies that have been developed, policies that we are now putting in place, buildings policy, and then there will be the law later on, the building law. All these are going to make sure that we enforce implementation of programs and what we agree on.
Airtel Malawi has declared a 27.5 billion kwacha dividend, representing 2 kwacha 50 tambala per share as final dividend for the year ending December 2022. However, the dividend is lower compared to the preceding year, despite experiencing a rise in profit after tax in the year under review. Justin Kwewu attended the annual general meeting for Airtel PLC and has since filed this report.
As a requirement for listed companies, now and then, especially when they have made a good profit and they have decided that that profit should benefit shareholders, declares dividends. Different companies have declared dividends according to their policy of dividends and also in line with the money or the profit that they have made. One of those companies is Airtel Malawi, as one of the listed companies from the telecommunications sector. The company has declared a 27.5 billion, representing 2 kwacha 50 tambala per ordinary share. However, this is a drop from 32.5 billion kwacha declared in the preceding year, which represented 2 kwacha 95 tambala per ordinary share. But speaking at the company's annual general meeting in Blantyre, Airtel Malawi Managing Director Charles Kamoto said the development is as a result of the firm being cautious of the economy and, of course, trying to invest in other technologies that will help it to widen its coverage, especially to rural areas with different technologies such as the internet and voice calls.
The dividend is 27.5 billion. That's a drop from the 33 billion of last year. It is not substantial. I think what is important is that while profit has gone up to 36.9 billion, the 27.5 is reflective of our agenda that we have on the business, which is to continue to expand and invest in new technologies. We must be mindful of that as we are declaring, as the shareholders are declaring the dividend, so that the company is both meeting the expectations of the shareholders, the immediate needs of the shareholders, as well as the growth of the business, which is also to the interest of the same shareholders. If the business grows well, you can have an expectation that the performance of the business will be good and potentially more value will be created.
Meanwhile, during the year, the company announced to have made a profit after tax of 36.9 billion kwacha, up from 32.3 billion kwacha recorded during the preceding year. Kamoto attributed the growth in profit to the increase in customer base, which boosted revenue.
In 2022, Airtel's revenue reached 153 billion and our profit reached 36.9 billion, which was a substantial growth from the previous year. Well, growth in our customers, about 5% growth in our customers was a factor for growth in revenue. Our revenue, average revenue per customer also increased by around 10%. That a combination of that led to the growth of about 16% of our revenue, which was pivotal to our increase in profits to 36.9 billion. Of course, coupled with our other strategies in cost containment to ensure that the company continues to be profitable and viable for the future. All the services have performed better. It's just that one has performed better than the other. So we continue to lead on our voice services because of our strategy to expand to rural areas, uptake of new users that are on the lower scale of the base that are predominantly using 2G services. They increased, and that contributed to better growth of voice revenue. Data revenue was it also grew, but I think its growth was also a bit suppressed by the pressure that we had on reducing prices, and that impacted the overall revenue growth of data. But usage for data phenomenally went up.
One of the shareholders, William Matewere, said he was impressed with the performance of the company.
In fact, despite the turbulent waters that we had in Malawi, the economic situation, but Airtel managed to peddle through the turbulent waters, and they performed preferably well. In fact, that is very varied. Anyway, if we are talking of Vision 2063 about the ICT development, I think that's a varied expense that Airtel ought to make.
Airtel Malawi is the second company from the telecommunications sector to list on the Malawi Stock Exchange, which as of now has 16 companies from different sectors, which include the banking, which are in majority, and then manufacturing and many other sectors that are represented on the local stock market.
Now, in other business news, the Reserve Bank of Malawi's Monetary Policy Committee is scheduled to meet next week to review recent economic trends as well as decide on the monetary policy stance, which has remained tight for a greater part of the year. There are mixed expectations, at least from economists and other stakeholders, in as far as the possible position of the MPC is concerned, as most indicators of the economy remained in red for a greater part of the year. Now, what should we expect of the MPC meeting? This is a question our journalist Kumwembe Mangazi attempts in this report.
There are mixed expectations among economists and commentators over the committee's possible position and impact to the economy, as most macroeconomic fundamentals remain in the red. Already, the central bank hinted at maintaining a tight monetary policy stance in the foreseeable future to ensure commodity price stability. A tight monetary policy entails a stance by a central bank to control and restrict the availability of money and credit in an economy, typically to curb inflationary pressures and ensure stability. Among other factors, central banks increase the policy rate, a key driver of interest rates on loans, which traditionally triggers a rise in lending interest rates. At its second Monetary Policy Committee meeting in April, the RBM increased its policy rate by 400 basis points to 22%, knowing that inflation was said to remain elevated in 2023. It said the risks which emerged during the review quarter, fueled by both adverse supply-side and heightened demand-side inflationary pressures. The committee observed that such a high inflationary environment is not conducive for economic growth. In its recent market intelligence report, the RBM also said the prevailing high food price is a cause for concern, as it could delay the disinflation process. In its second quarter country report for Malawi, global economic think tank, the Economics Intelligence Unit, predicts that the policy rate would remain tight. Among other things, the EIU predicts Malawi's headline inflation to average 30.6% in 2023. EIU says Malawi's foreign currency shortages are making imports of food and fuel costly and could prompt currency devaluation, which will drive up inflationary pressure. It says the local economy will grow by a meager 0.7% in 2023, lower than 0.8% recorded in 2020 when the country was hard hit by the COVID pandemic. Economic think tank, the Economics Association of Malawi, ECAMA, feels inflation would remain elevated in the short to medium terms, a situation which would intensify pressure on other fundamentals. Its executive director, Frank Chikuta, said recently that all factors point towards elevated inflationary pressures for the rest of the year. Since April, when the MPC revised the policy rate upwards to 22%, inflation has remained on a rising trajectory, reaching 29.2% in May. The local unit, the kwacha, remained volatile on the exchange market, dropping 2.6% against the United States dollar.
That report also brings us to the end of today's edition of the program Business Time, a magazine program in which we bring you major business and economic news stories making headlines in the country. My name is William Kumwembe. Thank you for watching, but always remember, if it doesn't make money, then it doesn't make sense. Goodbye for now.